Hey guys, Dr. Whitney Bowe here, and today we are talking about how to eat your way to having healthy, beautiful, radiant skin. So for those of you who don't know me, I am a board-certified dermatologist based in New York. I'm the author of the best-selling book, The Beauty of Dirty Skin, and I take a holistic approach to the skin, which means that I talk about healthy skin, both from the inside out and from the outside in. So if that type of content appeals to you, be sure to subscribe. And if you find this video helpful, then share it with some friends. So today's video is all about diet and the skin. So I'm gonna give you guys practical tips on foods you wanna eat and foods you wanna avoid if you want to have healthy skin. So whether you're dealing with acne, rosacea, eczema, or you're starting to see signs of aging, things like loss of elasticity, brown spots, fine lines, wrinkles, dilated pores, all of those things have one thing in common. They all have inflammation in common. And if we can dial down inflammation in our gut, that's going to translate into healthy skin, because an inflamed gut leads to inflamed skin. So we have to take an evidence-based approach. I'm not just talking about, an elimination diet based on nothing. This is all based on solid, emerging, breathtaking science that has come out in the last decade or so, showing that certain things that we eat or drink can make our skin worse, and other things can make our skin better. So step one is that you want to cut out refined carbs and processed sugars. So you want to try to avoid foods that have what's called a high glycemic index. So when you eat foods that have a high glycemic index or have a lot of refined carbs or sugars, what happens is that it causes a spike in your blood glucose, which leads to a spike in your blood insulin, and that leads to a whole cascade of events that leads to inflammation in the skin. It also leads to a process called glycation. So when you eat too many sugars or your sugar levels in your blood are too high, it leads to this process where the sugar molecules themselves actually bind to the fats, the proteins in your skin. So your collagen, your elastic fibers in your skin, the ones that keep your skin nice and firm and tight, those are the ones that are especially susceptible to this process of glycation, where the sugar binds to those molecules in your skin and basically targets them for destruction. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to try to avoid, your white bread, your white pasta, your chips, your cornflakes, your, sugary cereals, your scones, your muffins, and instead you want to gravitate towards foods that have a low glycemic index, foods that have more complex carbs. If you need carbs, then you can get them from things like quinoa, oatmeal, sweet potato. I love getting my carbs from veggies. That's a great place to get your carbs, and it doesn't spike your blood glucose and trigger inflammation of the skin. If you really want to dive into the science behind how sugars and glycemic index, high glycemic index foods affect the skin, check out my YouTube video on why sugar is not so sweet for the skin. Okay, so next let's talk about dairy. So a lot of my patients come in and they think that they have to avoid all forms of dairy because any kind of dairy is making their skin worse. That's not the case. So you just have to be choosy with dairy. Some dairy is okay, some dairy is going to definitely cause inflammation in the skin. So you really want to try to avoid any dairy milk, specifically skim milk. So the thought is that we think that the milk proteins, specifically whey and casein, are actually inflammatory when it comes to the skin. So you want to look for dairy milk alternatives. So ones that I love, that I have in my house, I have almond milk, unsweetened almond milk. I also have coconut milk. These are great alternatives. You just have to be really careful. You want to turn it around. You want to look at the label. You want to make sure that there are no added sugars, because we just talked about the fact that sugar is not good for the skin. So if you're having a dairy-free milk that's loaded with sugar, you're sort of negating all the good. Along those lines, if you like to supplement, your shakes with a protein powder, I would highly recommend avoiding whey protein powder, or even, those bars that are made with whey protein. Those can trigger inflammation in the skin. And specifically, there are some studies showing that bodybuilders who were relying on those types of supplements they had really bad acne, and when those supplements were taken away, or they switched from, say, a whey protein supplement to a plant-based powder instead, their acne cleared up. Okay, so what about yogurt? So yogurt is considered fermented dairy. Fermented dairy is great for the skin because it's got live active cultures or probiotics in it. So that actually seems to outweigh the negative effects of the little bit of whey or casein that makes its way into yogurt. But again, be careful. You want to turn it around. You want to look at the sugars, make sure there's not too many added sugars. Sometimes in the low fat or non-fat yogurts, there's just a lot of added sugar. So just be really careful with that. Okay, so what about cheese? So cheese, this is Munster. This is my personal favorite. So cheese, it turns out, in these large-scale epidemiological studies, does not seem to exacerbate inflammation in the skin. Specifically, if you're going to be indulging in cheese, you want to have cheeses that naturally have probiotics in them. So things like Munster cheese, certain forms of cheddar, goat cheese, Swiss cheese, gorgonzola, blue cheese, cottage cheese. Cottage cheese is fermented. So those cheeses do have some healthy probiotics in them, but don't go crazy with the cheese. Cheese should be in moderation because cheese is high in saturated fat. And I do have the occasional patient who, even though the studies don't show that cheese makes acne or makes their skin look more or feel more inflamed, those few patients do find an association when they keep a food journal or a food diary. They do see that certain cheeses do exacerbate their skin condition. So it's one of those things you sort of have to determine it on a case-by-case basis. So while technically not dairy, eggs are usually found in the dairy section. So when it comes to eggs are great for the skin. They absolutely have beautiful vitamins, minerals, amino acids, omega-3 omega-3 fats, which are great for the skin. But you want to make sure that your eggs, you want to look at the carton, you want to look for organic eggs, you want to look for the words free range right over there, cage-free, pasture-raised, omega-3. Those are all buzzwords if you can't make it to the farmer's market. Another clue when it comes to a healthy egg for your skin is if the yolk is sort of a dark orange almost in color. You know, if it's really pale and yellow, chances are that egg is not really going to be the nutrition bomb that your skin is craving. Okay, so next, guys, antioxidants. You want to load up on antioxidants. So a good rule of thumb is to get your antioxidants from brightly colored fruits and veggies, emphasis on the veggies, because some fruits are loaded with sugar. So if you're going to have some fruits, try to steer towards berries, and have like one serving a day. Don't go crazy with the fruit. But really, any kind of brightly colored vegetable is so key when it comes to antioxidants. Antioxidants they're going to neutralize what are called free radicals and oxidative stress. So our skin is exposed to tons of free radical damage all day long, from ultraviolet rays, from stress, from pollution, and free radical damage can contribute to acne, it can contribute to aging, so it can contribute to dry, sensitive, inflamed skin. You really want to try to dial down that inflammation by loading up on antioxidants. So my favorite ways to do that, you want to look for green leafy vegetables, you want to look for brightly colored fruits and vegetables. Again, just eat the rainbow. I also highly recommend drinking or sipping some green tea during the day. I love that. And you can also get polyphenols and antioxidants from dark chocolate. But again, don't go crazy, a little handful. And don't forget the herbs and spices. Those are amazing when it comes to antioxidant benefits. So I cook liberally with these. I love looking for herbs and spices in my teas. Great for getting your antioxidants in. Okay, so next, let's talk fats. So fats are not the enemy. In fact, certain fats are wonderful for the skin. And a lot of people always ask me, Dr. Bowe, how much water should I drink a day? Well, guys, it's not only the water. It's not just about hydrating with water. You also have to be, I'm like waving around my avocado because I always eat an avocado. But you have to eat enough healthy fats in your diet if you're going to trap that moisture in your skin. So which are good fats when it comes to the skin? So salmon, avocado, nuts, seeds, extra virgin olive oil. Those are great sources. Chia seeds, flax seeds, almonds, walnuts, sunflower seeds. Those are excellent sources of healthy fats for the skin. The typical average American gets too many omega-6 fatty acids and too few omega-3 fatty acids. In fact, we tend to consume a ratio about 20 to 1, and the ideal ratio is closer to 2 to 1. So we really need to boost our healthy fat intake and really get those omega-3 fatty acids. Okay, so last but not least, guys, and this is probably the most important one, you want to make sure that you're eating and drinking your prebiotics and your probiotics. So as I said before, if you have an inflamed gut, that is going to show up as inflammation in the skin. So it's really important to take care of the microbiome in our gut. The microbiome in our gut, if it is happy, if it is healthy, if it is balanced, if it is diverse and thriving, that is going to dial down levels of inflammation throughout our body and is going to translate into healthy, radiant, clear, beautiful skin. So what do I mean by eating your prebiotics and your probiotics? Well, when it comes to probiotics, again, we talked about yogurt in the past. Look for live active cultures. Make sure that the sugar level is low. Other types of fermented dairy are things like kefir and skyr. You also want to consider drinking some kombucha. Kombucha is a fermented tea. It definitely is sort of an acquired taste. So get out there, test some different flavors. But if you can sip on this in the afternoon, that is a great step in the right direction for your gut microbiome and for your skin. You also want to look for other fermented products, things like kimchi, sauerkraut. I usually cook with miso paste. Where's my miso paste? Here it is. So I'll put this on some salmon. Really anything that's fermented is going to be beneficial for your gut microbes. So those are probiotics, but you also want to think about prebiotics. So prebiotics include things like asparagus, garlic, onions, bananas, so long as the banana is not too ripe. And then even apples are a great source of prebiotic fiber. Prebiotics, it's like nourishment for the good bugs. So if you're eating a lot of prebiotics, then that is going to be fertilizer or food for your healthy bugs, and it's going to be supportive of a healthy microbiome. Just a bit of context here. This all seems super intuitive, right? Like, of course, what I eat impacts my skin. Of course, I can make dietary changes that are going to make my, acne look better, make my rosacea improve, or, slow down the signs of aging. That seems really sort of intuitive and obvious to us now. But when I was in training in medical school and residency, we were taught in our textbooks, by our professors, on our reputable websites, that if a patient presents this concept that what they're eating is making their skin worse or making their skin condition worse, we were to debunk that as myth and basically hand them a prescription. So I didn't really think that was the case on a personal level from what I was experiencing. And when I was listening to my patients and the patients that I was treating and interacting with, they also seem to feel a very different way. And so, I definitely am considered a pioneer and a trailblazer in this area because I actually took a very strong position against some of the giants in my field, and I started lecturing and publishing on the topic of nutrition in the skin. And I am so humbled to say that now a lot of people have followed suit, got lots of support, and now the textbooks, the websites, they've all been revised to reflect this new notion that yes, what we do eat affects our skin. And just a couple of years ago, I was awarded a presidential citation from the President of the American Academy of Dermatology acknowledging the work that I've done in this area. The recommendations that I made today in today's video are not just hearsay, they're actually evidence-based and they're simple, guys. I have lots of recipes on how to implement these tips in my book, The Beauty of Dirty Skin, so be sure to check that out. And I really hope that you found this helpful. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions, any comments. I'm always listening. Cheers.